Well, good morning and welcome to Sunday Morning Coffee with Dr. Childress here. So, today I want to discuss a little housekeeping stuff. I'm going to be talking about my practice, what I do, how to connect with me, giving you various information, potentially useful information about how to bring me into your matter or consult with me with those various sorts of things. I just finished a week of public consults, and that's a lot of times what we're talking about of my various roles and how to engage me. So I thought I would just put this up on the YouTube, and that could potentially be useful to people in planning and organizing their world. So today I'm just going to talk about my practice, what I do, and how to connect to me. So to begin with, my client, just client identification. My client is always the child in the family. If I fix the things for the child, I fix things for the parents, for the courts, for everybody. And so when I come into as a clinical psychologist, any family situation, my client is always a child. Now, when there's court involvement, I have a second client, and that's the court. The court's decision regarding the child is monumental. It's huge. And so I have an obligation to the court to get the court accurate information about the child. So and there's so that's actually a dual relationship because I have two clients. The thing is, the court will never ask me to do something harmful to the child. And so there's no conflict of interest in having two clients on that. But when I come into a matter, I'm focused on the child as a clinical psychologist, do right by the child. And then when the court's involved, I have two clients. So neither one of them are you as a parent. So uh, here's my role, and here's a description of my role involved in the court matters when I'm involved with an attorney. And there's an attorney in the matter who believes that the application of established knowledge from clinical psychology to a set of information will assist the court in its decision making surrounding the child. The attorney provides me with a set of information. I apply the established knowledge from clinical psychology to the information, and I provide a report to the attorney. So at this point in time, the attorney serves as my link to the child and to the court. Now, I don't work with pro se parents representing themselves as an attorney because that's too dangerous for me because you're kind of in a dual role. And I want to make sure I stay safe from this point out. And I'm in danger because I'm helping you and exposing things. There's a lot of forensic psychologists who want to retaliate or want me to go away. So, and they control the licensing boards. So I am in danger. So I need to just protect myself until we get through this period and readjust how things are done in the family courts. But at this point in time, it's the attorney or a licensed mental health professional in your area that serves as the connection point that then links me into the situation. But that's my role, for at least for an attorney. Is I don't have opinions, and I know everybody thinks, oh, the doctor has opinions, and they're going to say that and say, I look at you, give me a set of information, I apply like the established knowledge of clinical psychology to the information. And so you can go to the books and do the same sort of thing. And it's not really an opinion. I have opinions. I like the color blue, but that's not relevant to the situation. What's the knowledge and what's triggered, whether the symptoms that trigger that knowledge. So again, just sort of my description of me, how I see myself. Dr. Childress is a verbal Wikipedia of clinical psychology. So I know like a lot of stuff about clinical psychology with artificial intelligence, human intelligence in this case, capabilities. And I don't know anything about your world because I haven't conducted an assessment necessary to find out about your world. Instead, I speak to the patterns of pathology, I know a lot of patterns. And whether those patterns apply to your individual situations is a matter for future determination. I can't make that. So I don't know who you are. You could be lying to me and telling me a wholly made up fable. and get me responding to the fable. But I don't know that. So I can't speak to what's actually occurring in your world. So it's no point as you as a parent to try to convince me of what's going on in your world with the pathology, because I can't say what's going on in your world. What we can do is talk about how we can make that determination. Okay. So here's the first thing I typically say to parents as they consult with me. I say, this is a pathology of lies. And because of that, parents in your position are always having to prove reality to people. But you don't need to prove reality to me. I already know what reality is. Okay. So I want to spend most of our time talking about what we're going to do about it rather than you trying to prove that no, I got it. Okay. What are we going to do about it? And that's where that's the most productive use of my time, because I'm not licensed where you are. And we'll talk about that in a second. So we only have a little bit of time. So let's talk about developing a plan of where you're going to go and how things are going to happen. That's the most productive use of my time. But I don't know about your world. I'm just like a Wikipedia with human intelligence instead of artificial intelligence as my interface. It's a little more fragile. It's kind of got a little grumpier than artificial intelligence, and a little less efficient. But it's all I got. So that's kind of my role in the situation. So let's talk about what I actually do, more specifically on what I do in my practice. I basically do three things, one of three things, maybe two, maybe all three. The first is triage. That's how I see it. And those are the general public consults the first week of the month. And they're scheduling for those through my consulting website. So I will meet with anybody one time. Okay. But if you're not in California where I'm licensed, I'm not, that's one time and that's it. If you're in California, I can meet with you multiple times, but probably not. I'm probably going to work with your professionals anyway. Now, the second thing I do is attorney related, and that's where the attorney gets me involved. And we'll talk about each one of these. And so that's typically with document review and report writing about other mental health reports. So you're involved in a situation, you got mental health involvement, you got maybe some problematic mental health people, you've written reports, something written that your attorney gets me and gets an opinion on that or report from me. Oftentimes it's mental health reports, sometimes it's GAL reports or other useful professional level reports. Emails, texts, those sorts of things are not particularly useful. Then I do mental health related things, and this is consultation with other mental health professionals or GAL, so they can just contact me, and so I'm just doing direct consultation to a GAL or to a mental health professional who's involved, or parents are bringing me in to do telehealth second opinion consultation on an active assessment. So I'll be like sitting in your computer and watching things. They log into my office, wing the computer monitor around, and I'm sitting in the office where they are. So that's another thing we'll talk about in a second. But those are the sort of the three categories of what I do. So starting with triage. So what that is, I see that is typically, let me just speak to this for a second, what I'm doing with triage. So I do general public consults the first week of every month, and you can schedule through my online consulting calendar. And so it just shows up, and it's kind of like speed dating for a psychologist. People just keep showing up in my office. Now, the reason I'm doing that, I typically wouldn't do that. The reason I'm doing that is I would typically be doing consults with your mental health people. Okay, so you'd be working with your mental health person. Your mental health person would be seeking a consult from me, and I'd be working through them. The problem is your mental health people aren't seeking consults. They're incompetent, they're ignorant, they're lazy, they're unethical, and they're doing what they're doing and stumbling around, making all sorts of mistakes. And so because of that, you guys don't have competent mental health services. So I'm kind of bypassing the mental health people and working directly triage with all of you parents that are getting savaged in the family courts, getting you the professional level information that you need. But I'm not there to solve your problem. I'm there to first, in these general public consults, to help you triage your problem. What's the situation? I'm going to apply, you're going to tell me information. I'm going to apply the knowledge of clinical psychology and kind of put you in a pattern, basically. And we'll talk about that. Once I have you in your pattern, I'll talk to your pattern and we can come up with maybe a plan for working with your attorney or your mental health people, or how are you going to handle the situation. And so that's the general public consultations. But the reason I'm doing it is because I don't have access to your mental health people right now. Once they start contacting me, once we get past this phase, then I'm likely not to have general public consults, and I'll start working with mental health people and attorneys, the professional level, more directly. But right now, given the situation, parents are in need. This is active child abuse, this is active spousal abuse, undiagnosed, untreated. So I'm out in the field doing active triage at this point. And it's kind of fun, speed dating, getting to know you. So about a week before your appointment, my assistant Maggie will send you out an email with consent forms and a second email with resources. And let me talk about those for a second. So Maggie's going to send you out an email with these forms. Please send them back. There's not really a consent form because I'm not doing any psychotherapy or anything psychological. I'm just kind of meeting with you and going, what do you want to talk about? But I do have an information sheet that expresses that and says that I just talking to you, find out what you want to talk about. And what I'm going to do is basically, because I don't know about your world, I don't even know if you're truthful with me, and I don't need to. I'm not making a diagnosis. I don't have duty of care, it's called, responsibilities for you yet. So what I do is, this is a pathology of patterns, and that's the pathology I work with. So I'm going to put you into a pattern. And the moment I have you in my pattern, I can answer the questions based on the pattern, but not based on your life. Now, if that pattern is applicable to your life, well, then the information I'm providing is applicable. If it's not, it's not. And so one of the first parts of the pattern is, if I'm talking to a man, I'm most likely in the borderline mom pattern. That's going to have higher false allegations and higher anxiety associated with it. If I'm talking to a woman, I'm most likely in the narcissistic dad pattern. That has a higher spousal abuse feel to it. So right off the bat, just when you pop into my office, or even before, when I get your information about whether you're a man or a woman, I potentially have you in a pattern. Now, I'll as we get information, I'll lock that up. And the narcissist can be borderline can be not, but it's my job to locate you in your pattern. But that's what I'll be doing. And once I have you in your pattern, then that's where I'll have you. I'll be able to answer questions based on the pattern, not on your reality. One of the most important aspects of those forms going out, that getting back to me, is the demographic form, because that's really valuable, because it's going to give me a first few bits of information to put you into your pattern. And that gets me like 80-90% in your pattern. And that bit of information is, first off, so if you don't send me the demographic form, here's a list of questions I'm going to ask you. If I don't get a demographic form and I'm just coming in cold, and you say, I've got family problems I want to talk about, I'm saying, okay. So how many children are we talking about? And what are their ages and genders? So starting with the oldest, tell me their ages and genders, and how many are we talking about? And do we have any step kids either side, or any other associated children around this situation, and maybe a new spouse or something. So I'm going to get a sense of the family structure of what I'm looking at. How many children? I know it's going to be targeting the oldest child. You don't have to tell me that they're most severe and the younger ones aren't severe. I'll get that information. Now, sometimes there's a variation. Sometimes it's not the oldest child, it's the second child. We'll get that information, and that has little implications, but not much. And so I'll be patternizing you. The moment I have you in the pattern, you'll hear me ask a question, which is, how are you hoping I can be helpful? Now, I already have a number of ideas about how I can be helpful. But before I start offering you ideas, I want to hear, how are you hoping I can be helpful? And how you hope I can be helpful and how I can be helpful might be two different things. But that's my question. How are you hoping I can be helpful? And then we start to engage about developing a plan and what we're going to do about it. So those are the consent form periods. Then we have our consultation session up on DoxyMe. So let me talk about the consultation session for a second. So on the day of our appointment, just log into DoxyMe/Dr. Childress. It's like an online office. It's like a permanent Zoom meeting online. And so I can just walk in here and open up my office, and here I am. I have a permanent Zoom meeting, and it's HIPAA compliant place. I chose one for medical doctors because it's got the highest level of protections and compliance things. And I can get 4 computers in here, so you don't have to be in the same office. You can put yourself in different places. And I will bill you at the start of the session. So you don't have to go and pay ahead of time or figure that out. You're going to show up in my office, and just before the appointment, you're going to get a little bill thing. So I have your credit card out, and you enter the information, that because it's 2024 and 10 years, your information will push a button and it'll flow into the computers. But at this point, you just put your information, and then boop, you show up in my office and hopefully have connection. Connections are better on computers, not so much on cell phones sometimes. So you want to check your bandwidth where you are, because it's really annoying and difficult if you keep dropping off or doing something and it gets difficult. We can reschedule if that happens. Don't worry about it. But get yourself on a secure line. And so show up to the office. We'll start talking. If you sent me back the demographic form, that saves us about 15 minutes of me collecting information, because I already know how many children, already know their ages, I know how long ago. The next question is, how long ago was a divorce or separation event? So are we talking 7 years, in which case there's a span of history that something's been going on, or are we talking recent? Because if it's recent, then maybe we could even get the handle on this without a lot of falderall and stuff going forward. And so there's different implications of just how long you've been in this situation, and how long, if you've been in it for 5 years and have like 3 or 4 children, it's going to go deeper into the siblings. And so that's when we'll find out where the symptom patterns are with the siblings. And it's going to be a different pattern based on the gender of the parent and gender of the child. So maybe just to say this a lot, because I pretty much say this every time. So if I start to say this in the session, I say, I've already heard of Dr. Childress, and I go, okay, good. But there's 4 types of relationship in the family, and they depend on gender of the parent and gender of the child. 2 of those are cross-gender relationships. Those are your high affection bonds. That's mother-son and father-daughter. 2 are same gender bonds. So those are the values and identity bonds. Those are the father-son and mother-daughter bonds. And so the type of relationship kind of varies based on, and so that influences how the pathology is going to manifest in the given situation. Is which pattern of gender relationships in the family is it manifesting out on? And then we have the overlay of the broad pattern and get more specific. So that's where the gender and ages of the children, and then how long are we looking at things. So we'll talk about that. Now with that too, well, let me pull this up for a second. So what we're working towards is, I'm not going to make a diagnosis. I don't have this duty of care for you at this point. And so I'm not either authorized or capable of making a diagnosis in the situation. What I'm going to talk with you about, because I feel, again, I'm doing triage, is we're going to develop a plan for where to go. And so because I'm a clinical psychologist, because I don't have capable mental health support out there, I'm out in the field directly, and I'm doing triage with you. Now, here's a thing. I'm running into this where I have typically with the mother parents out there, more so than the fathers. I'll talk a little bit about the difference in a second. But with the mothers, on the narcissistic dad pattern, that has a high spousal abuse feel to it. So the moms, psychologically, their brain is a traumatized brain. They're an active spousal abuse victim of complex trauma, but relationship-based trauma. And that does things to the brain. and it impacts certain domains like organization, attention, planning. And that's the one I'm missing, the planning ability and just organizing ability, because they're being traumatized and they're trying to escape the pain. They're trying to escape the trauma. And that interferes with their ability to maintain sort of executive functions, they're called, and navigate. But that's what we're doing, is developing a plan. It's called a safety plan sometimes. And so it's a plan to get them protection from the spousal abuse, and so that they can protect their child from the psychological abuse in the situation. But I shouldn't be asking the traumatized mother to develop the plan. That's what the mental health person is there for. So a lot of times or my standard kind of thing is when in that situation where I believe I have the active spousal abuse victim, I will refer them to get individual therapy with a domestic violence therapist who will help them develop the plan that we come up with. Okay, so that's one component, or maybe get some coaching support that knows the plan, and then that would help that person, that trauma victim, the spousal abuse victim, organize the plan to get out of the trauma and out of the spousal abuse. So that's one. Now, the difference with the dads is the dads are more masculine, so they don't have necessarily the spousal abuse trauma display, and they're not likely in the narcissistic mom pattern where there's a high spousal abuse. They're more likely in the borderline mom, where they're getting false allegations and high anxiety kinds of stuff. And so they're responding to a different variant of the pathology. They have a different gender on the situation. And what I experience for the dads mostly is off the chart grief. Oh my goodness, is their grief so high? So that's the issue relative to them. Over on the mom side, I'm dealing more with the spousal abuse component of things. And by that, you're inducing great grief in the dad is spousal abuse. So it's spousal abuse one way or the other. It's just over here, I have a higher anxiety with the moms, and over dads, I got a higher sadness or depression. So what we're going to do in that situation is we're going to develop a plan, and then go out and you're going to execute the plan with the local professionals. Now, if you have an individual therapist, I can always talk to your individual therapist. So if you have an individual therapist and after we talk, you talk to them and they want to consult with me, then fine, I can talk with them and we can talk about the pathology and all sorts of anything they want to talk about. I can consult with other licensed mental health professionals all over the place. Um, the the issue on confidentiality for like the child therapist or the family therapist is, if I don't know who they're talking about, there's no breach of confidentiality. So as long as I don't have a connection of the mental health person to any person, oh, absolutely. They just, and the way they get to, and we'll talk about that. The way they get to that is just sign out of my monthly consults, show up, and I say, oh, you're not a parent, you're a mental health person. Okay, what do you want to talk about? And we'll do whatever they want to do. So, so that's one. We're going to develop a plan, then you're going to go execute the plan, maybe get some support out there. So that's the triage component of what I do. The second type of thing that I do is when an attorney brings me into the matter. And so in this situation, the attorney is my connection link to my two clients, the court and the child. And, attorney in the matter wants a review of information from the perspective of clinical psychology. So the attorney can get a hold of me through either the general public consult, just sign up and show up in the initial consult, or you sign up and your attorney shows up with you on the first consult. That's fine. Or an attorney can just get a hold of me directly. They don't have to wait for the first of the month. So yeah, let me talk a little bit about just the attorney connecting with me. If you know what you want, if you kind of want me to review a custody evaluation document, or you got some treatment related reports you want me to take a look at or something, you know what you want me to do, then we can skip the initial consultation, bring your attorney on, and we'll start right in talking about that. Or the attorney, now, if what I'm doing with the first week of the month is I'm triaging to the spousal abuse victims in the family courts, helping them develop a safety plan to get out of the spousal abuse, and then a safety plan to protect their children. And so I'm active out in the field at this point. Once we get the mental health support available to the parents and children, then I'm going to back away and provide higher order consultation support to the mental health professionals that are out with you. That's technically called building capacity. So we don't have any capacity right now. So I'm building capacity first thing by being out in the field, and then we'll keep working on that until you get the competent mental health services that you and your children need and the court needs. So so you can just figure that out on your side. If you got an attorney, and they don't have to do general public, just send me an email. If you have Maggie's address, put it on it. But otherwise, if you send me an email, say, I'm an attorney and representing somebody, I say, okay, I'll respond to you, CC my assistant, Maggie, who handles my calendar, and then she'll get you on my calendar and we'll talk. What we're going to talk about with an attorney, oftentimes, I can help your attorney understand the situation and directions to go. Okay, so that's one way your attorney and I talk, and with you present, and we talk and we figure out, what needs to happen in your situation from a clinical psychology perspective, and that might be my involvement. And if that's in my involvement in a situation, then we're going to do what's called a scope of service agreement, which is basically what information am I to review by what date, and or whether am I going to be telehealth involvement in an active assessment. And so that's, if you want to bring me in actively, that would be where your attorney and I are talking about what is the scope that you want me involved in. And typically it's either to review documents or to participate, second opinion, in an ongoing assessment. And then we'll talk about how the scope of that service and how much I'm going to bill for that. Now, talking about billing for a second. So I'm sure this is a concern to you because you're getting hammered financially. Oh my goodness. That's part of the spousal abuse. It's financial abuse. And I know that. So I know it's spousal abuse. You're being emotionally and psychologically abused, and you're also being spousally abused and abused by the legal system. So we got like 3 domains of spousal abuse going on to you parents. And so you're very much in an active trauma situation right now. And as a clinical psychologist, I cure pathology. I don't participate in it, especially when it's abuse. And so I feel uncomfortable participating in the spousal abuse of you, financial. So that's where I've kind of adjusted my fees at this point. Once we get the spousal abuse and child abuse all settled, oh my goodness, my fees are going to go up so high, and I'm going to go become like a super expert and stuff. But right now we got active spousal abuse and child abuse. I need to stop, and I need to get out to you folks. So my fees are $250 an hour for just doing things. And I set them at that point specifically. I want them high enough so that you don't misuse me. You just don't grab, oh, I got, $150. I'm just going to talk to Dr. Children, and I got better things to do, okay, on my time. But I don't want to set them high enough that if you have to talk to me, it would be like, oh, I don't want to talk to him because that's really expensive. So I thought $250 an hour is just at that point where you go, I don't want to use him, but if I need to use him, I do. Okay, so that's my hourly fee on this at this point. And then in working with you on a scope of service, I started out by billing hours and stuff, but I'm putting in like 40 hours and billing you for 20. So I'm because you couldn't afford 40 hours of my time, and so I cap it at like a cost. But then I ultimately decided I'm just not going to bill to the hours. I'm going to bill to the scope of the project, small, medium, or large. And so I'll set a fee, small, medium, or large, basically 10 hours, 20 hours, or big project. Big project is review of a forensic custody evaluation. That's large. I go through line by line, takes a huge amount of time. And so that's a large project. And medium, so that's 10,000 for the large project, 5,000 the medium scope project. That's where I'm involved in doing something. So you figure, 20 hours of my time somehow, report writing and involved. And then a small scope project, about 10 hours of my time, $2,500. And 10 hours of my time looking at a couple reports, 6 hours, report writing 4 hours, something like that. And so we'll talk. Okay. You, me, and your attorney, we'll sit down, we'll talk about how you want me involved and what you want me to review and we'll come up with a scope of service agreement where I know what you want, you know what I want, and we all agree on stuff. Then we go and do it. So then the third domain is uh, is my involvement in the mental health side of things. And so that again, that can be direct public consults or direct or general public consults or direct contact. So if there's a mental health person who wants to get a hold of me, they don't have to wait for general public. Just email me and I'll respond with Maggie on it and we'll get them on my schedule. And so again, the professionals is where I should be talking to. I'm out in the general public because I have to be there because you don't have any mental health support. And so uh, so the various roles of the mental health people that I interact with. Um, so if you have an individual therapist and you want to get on a consult with me with your individual therapist to help your individual therapist talk about what you're going through, the trauma, the psychological trauma, ways to deal with that, or to help your individual therapist understand what the plan is for the court system and that whole domain of what needs to happen so that when I'm not around, your involved therapist can help you move on that plan or get that plan going or help resolve the psychological issues with you, your children, help support you in parenting, whatever it is, okay, that your mental health person wants to talk with me about, that's fine. And because they're licensed, I can talk to them as much as they want to talk with me. I can talk with them with you. I can talk with them without you. It doesn't really matter to me. I can know who you are. I cannot know who you are. Again, it doesn't matter to me. So when I got a mental health consultation, yeah, well, let's just talk about the problem. And what we'll do is they'll tell me information and I will apply the established knowledge of clinical psychology. I'll be a Wikipedia of clinical psychology. They'll give me information that they may not know applies to this. And so I'm a Wikipedia though. So they give me information. I say, oh, that applies here with my human intelligence. And they go, oh, I didn't realize that. And now they have openings and connections for seeing things. That's why we consult. And so I'm available to them all the time. The other folks I'm available to is the family therapist. Again, individually, they can get a hold of me. And if I don't know who they are or their client, then there's no breach of confidentiality. They don't need releases. If they're working in a high conflict family court situation, they're looking at a family and go, oh, geez, this is kind of difficult. Well, schedule an appointment with me. Talk with me about it. That's what I do. I do 10 years in the family courts doing this pathology. I know what it is. I know how to treat it. I know how to diagnose it. So if you're in the situation, get a hold of me. You can do that, just general public consultation. Boop, get on my schedule. Or if it's a crisis situation, something important you want, and you go email directly, and Maggie will get you on my schedule. So it's not hard for the mental health people to get a hold of me if they want to get a hold of me. Individual therapists, if you're worried as an individual therapist that you may be caught in this, absolutely get a hold of me and ask me what's going on. And I can help you with your individual therapy with the child. I can help you with the overall family context. I can help you with your ethical and professional responsibilities in the situation. So, it's easy peasy. Just get on hold of my schedule or email me and I'll respond with Maggie and get you on my schedule. So we got your personal individual therapist, the family therapist, the child's individual therapist, GAL. If you're I did a consult the other day with GAL. First consult with the parent in the GAL came on, and the GAL just sat in the background, and the parent did a consult with me, and the GAL just was listening to what I was telling the parent. That's fine with me, okay. And then the second consult, the GAL just got a hold of me and said, well, what about this situation? What about this? How do I deal with that? And I'm not giving opinions about the situation. I don't know about it. I'm giving him information from clinical psychology about how clinical psychology would address that situation. And so we got safety plans. We got this. We need to get an assessment. The court needs accurate information. And that's very helpful to the GAL to have that resource. And now he has a resource. He can contact me about, autism. He got an autism case. He can go, oh, I don't know about, hey, I got a psychologist I could just check in with. Let me consult with Dr. Childress. And so that's the what I would prefer to be doing is the professional to professional consultations. Because here's the thing on consultation and old guy and psychology and supervision and stuff is if I have 5 hours of my time, I can do 5 hours of clinical intervention for 5 families or 5 children. If, however, I supervise 5 interns, each of which has 10 clients, then in my 5 hours, I can impact 50 clients instead of just 5. So that's how we do things. Okay. So the young people do, the old people consult. And that's how we get the knowledge moving through psychology. The problem is the forensic psychologists, the role models in this, are incompetent, ignorant, lazy like a rock, unethical, and they don't have a consultation model because they do forensic custody evaluations instead of clinical diagnostic assessment. So for a variety of reasons, consultation is not in the family courts. It needs to be in the family courts. The appellate system for a disputed diagnosis is second opinion. Okay, you don't litigate my diagnosis of autism, you get a second opinion on it. We know for a fact this is going to be a disputed diagnosis one way or the other. One parent or the other is going to dispute the diagnosis. So let's get a second opinion on it. But rather than do it sequentially of getting an assessment, a diagnosis, disputed, get a second assessment, a diagnosis, and then we have 2 arguing mental health people, let's do it right away, simultaneously, through telehealth. Okay, I'm sitting there talking to you. I can be in any computer anywhere on the planet. Just log into my online office, doxyme.com/Dr. Childress, flip the computer monitor around, and there I am, wherever you are. Okay, so I can be anywhere you are. So that's what I suggest you do is bring me in on those sorts of consultations. Now, what that does is if you have a local area mental health professional who works with me on a direct assessment, then I transfer the information on the assessment, on how to think about it, what symptoms I noted, all these sorts of things to that local mental health professional. And so that's now you have a local mental health professional with the knowledge and capability. Now, look at me, old guy. Okay, so I figure I've got maybe 10 years, more likely around 5, and so that's the solution is not based on me being an expert. I gave you the established knowledge that anybody could apply. The moment you know the same knowledge as I do, we're equal experts. I don't know any more than I'm only an expert because of my knowledge. The moment you know as much as I do, I'm not an expert anymore. And everybody, every single psychologist over here should have absolutely the top knowledge. So they should all be experts. And so there is no such thing as experts when we're all experts because we're all experts. And that should be the fact when we're working with child abuse and we're working in the courts. There shouldn't be any less than an expert over here. There's no reason, there's no excuse for ignorance or no excuse for lazy in the family courts. It's too important. And so we should be developing a consultation model, and we should be getting consultation groups going. I'll be seeding those at some point. Consultation groups for the family courts, easy peasy, because they can't do consultation on custody evaluations because they're too expensive, 6 to 9 months and all that. We can do consultations on second opinions on clinical diagnostic assessments. It's not going to take that long, 4 or 6 sessions, and telehealth, and we should be able to do that. Easy peasy. And then consultation, just group consultation. You don't have to be in the session necessarily. You can just get group consultations on those things. So, so that's sort of the mental health side of the situation. So I'm willing to talk with them, whether it's based on their motivation or your motivation or the court's motivation. I don't care. It doesn't matter to me what's motivating them to talk with me. I'm willing to talk with them. And that when they show up in my office, I will bill them as they come into my office, and then you reimburse them for their time. And so you can also give them the mental health consulting page on my website, so they can look at that. And then just tell them to log on, give them the information, and they'll contact me, and they'll show up in my office. When they do, I'll bill them, and you just tell them, well, I'll reimburse you for the cost. And so that's all the various ways of connecting into me. There I am. And so with that, I'm going to head off to my Sunday, and we'll talk about some aspect of the pathology going, next week and things. There's a psychologist. I want to take an opportunity and apologize for the quality of mental health services that you are receiving. The patient should never have to explain the pathology to the doctor. That doctor should already know. Are you kidding me? If you go into your oncologist, and you have to explain to them what the cancer is and how to assess for it and how to die, but that's the state we have in the family courts, where you're having to go in and explain to the doctors what the pathology is. Now, if anybody should be explaining to the doctors what the pathology is, it should be another doctor. And so that's my role. So you just connect them up to me, and I'll be very friendly, human, but I'll explain the pathology to them and encourage them to protect the child when child protection is warranted. And so you shouldn't have to explain it. Now, in addition, though, I shouldn't have to explain it to them. Okay, so that's the level of difficulty we have with your mental health person, is that I'm having to educate them, and that's a motivational thing on their part. They should be motivated to learn, and they should be seeking out the consultation. They should be seeking out the information, but they're not. They're lazy. They're unethical. They're ignorant. Google ignorance, lack of information and knowledge. I'm not being insulting. They're ignorant by definition of the English language. They're incompetent. They don't have the background necessary. They don't have the knowledge, and they're lazy, and they don't care. So that's the current state of the mental health system surrounding you. When you bring me in, if you're bringing me in as a consultant or second opinion on anything in your matter, you're going to pair me with somebody in the mental health system, to your local person, to do the assessment or the diagnosis or treatment on your situation. So I'm kind of a known quantity. Okay, I say everything. You know what you're getting with me. I'm very clear as to who I am and what my concerns are. The variable on this is, who are you going to pair me with? And so that's the issue that you want to start looking at. So you can start to maybe look into that ahead of time. Now, how do you find that? That's a difficult situation in the current state of the mental health system. I will talk about that probably in some future session, of how do you locate a competent mental health person to pair Dr. Childress with. But that's the situation. So with that, good luck everybody out there, and happy Mother's Day, and happy Sunday. Happy Mother's Day. It's a difficult time, but we're working it through. Kids are confused. We're working it through, and we'll get a handle on this. So with that, take care, everybody. Bye-bye.